Quarantine is a 2008 found footage horror film based on the Spanish film Wreck. It follows news reporter Angela and her cameraman Scott as they take a tour of a fire station when they get a call about an old woman in an apartment building. Now, allegedly, she has been screaming and being loud, and we later see her foaming at the mouth. These are all symptoms basically of listening to Down with the Sickness, so there's not much to be concerned about here. I think after watching this movie, I think we can all agree never to look away from such a ballistic person, and yet doesn't look like that's really ever taught at police academy, and we get things like this. As they try to get the first officer out of the building, they learn they've been locked inside, and pretty soon their communication to the outside world gets cut off.
Who the hell locked those doors?
Not us. Something is closing it from outside.
We have an officer down. I need an ambulance immediately. I need backup. Does anybody copy?
What's going on? Hey, what's going on?
Sir, you're wearing it. I know no more than you do right now, okay? Back up.
Deciding that the fabric shop is the best way to leave, we get our next brutal scene.
Not helping the situation, okay?
My husband's outside. He said there are cops everywhere. They blocked up the street. He was getting antibiotics for her. We gotta get
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Fletcher.
We never find out how Fletcher came to fall. I mean, I totally get that Mrs. Espinosa was completely jacked, but did she really chase him out of the apartment and then throw him over the railings? I mean, my guess is that he went to go downstairs and then she just kind of leapt at him, but I mean, who knows? So they eventually check up on Mrs. Espinosa now that she has 3 bodies under her belt and finally put her down. What's weird about her and the other people who eventually get infected is that she seemed to be the only one to really understand or to like comprehend what the cops were telling her in the beginning, like when they first met her, whereas everyone else just becomes mindless immediately. So it's never like the way that the virus infects people or the way that these people behave just kind of change a little bit. Like there's little things that don't really, like the continuity isn't all there. After bringing down most of the residents, Lawrence tells Jake they need to get Fletcher to an ambulance, which leads them to go to the fabric shop for a possible exit. Also, I never lived in apartments like these, but is it normal to have fabric shops here? Like, who has this? However, before they can even get to the door, soldiers are already there threatening them to stay inside, and now they're completely locked in. Angela, who has 0 manners, eavesdrops on Jake's call using his mic. And like, dude, you're still wearing that thing? Like, take it off.
He's not getting my question. No, you're not getting my question. I'm asking why they're calling this a PNC.
We learned that whatever is going on is a biological, chemical, or nuclear threat. It's at this point where Yuri, who's the landlord, tells Jake about a second way out through the office, but as they explore, that also gets closed off. Running out of options and time, the tension begins to get the best of everyone. As I was doing research for this movie, I learned that, the filmmakers had like 26 days to film everything, and they, like, everyone on set was like just wanting to make sure they got everything done in, quick takes and in a short amount of takes. So the tension to get the right take quickly started to manifest on screen. So like when we see like people kind of, snapping at one another or whatever the case is, like that actually was because they were like, yo, don't mess this up for me. So it's crazy that, you know, their time crunch in real life just kind of translated to the final product.
I'm sorry, man. Yeah.
She's freaked out. Just go.
We all are.
Downstairs. Just go downstairs. Okay. All right.
Yeah, let's get downstairs, man.
Moving on, though, they take the police officer and Fletcher to the fabric shop to be looked at as Angie interviews the residents. She ends up talking to Brianna, who up until now I had no clue was actually Joey King, who basically just says that her dog was sick and her dad had taken the dog to the vet that evening. We also get introduced to Sadie and Bernard, who I wanted to touch on real quick. These two live together in the building, and Bernard says that he's an opera teacher and that Sadie is one of his best students. Like, listen, Bernard, you ain't slick, all right, man? I think we all know exactly what's going on in your apartment. So after this, Lawrence explains that those infected are showing symptoms of rabies, but the symptoms are showing much faster than normal. He also says that rabies is fatal when symptoms show, but what's never explained is when would they die? If the symptoms are appearing at a much faster rate, then it would make sense that the infected would die faster as well. Like Mrs. Espinosa, if she hadn't been KO'd, when would the disease have killed her? Unless it was engineered not to kill the host. And we'll talk more about that later. When Angie sees that Bernard and Sadie are going back up to the apartment, she asks what they're doing, and they quickly lie, saying they're going to check on the news, like they weren't about to get it on. Then they get confronted by the dog that ran out of Mrs. Espinosa's apartment. But it quickly takes interest on the Mr. Mean businessman and has an all-you-can-eat buffet in the elevator. They quickly get over hearing someone die, but they have something important they need to do, so I guess it makes sense. When they turn on the TV, they hear that the fire chief says that everyone is out of the building in, like, the weirdest, like, if you look at it, it's a fuzzy, it fuzzes over, and then you hear like like you hear the lady just say CDC building, like what? And then clear as day you hear the fire chief go,
everyone's been evacuated.
what? Like, it doesn't make sense, dude. But anyway, so either he believes the building is vacant or he knows he's got two of his guys in there and he's willing to let them die. But soon after this, the lights go out and they're attacked by a rabies zombie. Which, looking back at this, like, it doesn't really make sense, because when they entered the apartment, Sadie locked the door behind them. So did this rabies zombie just wander from the fabric shop and chose to go in their apartment on a whim? And if she was already crazy, why didn't she attack when they walked in? Like, it just kind of seems like they were like, you know what, just throw in a little bit of action going on here. Like, I don't think they really understood the logic of where they were going, but hey, worked out. After this, though, Danny and Jake round up the residents at the fabric shop so they could take attendance for the CDC doctors so they can, you know, take blood samples and see who's infected. And they mentioned that they'll be, you know, once they get everyone checked, then they'll be free to go. Eventually, the CDC comes in to take some brain samples and immediately becomes snack time for the infected. The last remaining CDC doctor tells them about a dog that infected all the other animals at a vet hospital within an hour. When it's revealed that the dog was Max, everyone realizes that Brianna is also infected. And just kind of watching this, there's just more inconsistency here. Like, because her mom said that Brianna has been sick for weeks, and now that the movie's happening, that she's been outed, she's gonna go full zombie now? Like, how insane do you have to be? Like, the officials didn't say anything about hurting Brianna, and Kathy is screaming at them to get away from her. Like if this was my mom, like, yo, I'm infected, like, let them treat me or something. Like, damn.
Brianna? Brianna?
On it. I think she's in here, Jake.
She's over there. She's over there.
When they do find Brianna, Danny takes a play right out of his partner's book and looks away from the girl. Like, you would think, hey, zombie, don't turn around, don't look away from them because they're gonna bite you. But hey, he turns his neck and hey, open buffet. Running out of the apartment, Mrs. Espinosa makes a guest appearance again, and I thought she died. Like, do bullets not kill these things? Because they're not technically zombies, so you can shoot them anywhere and, you know, they'll die. But, you know, this just seemed like a way to bring a jump scare in. Even though Jake bringing the hammer down on her was an awesome scene, it's like, what kills them and what doesn't? Like, she had 3 to the chest, bro. Like, what else is it needed to kill her? Pretty soon, all hell breaks loose, and the remaining survivors take shelter in that vacant apartment. After confirming that none of them are bitten, Jake says something interesting here. He says they could all be infected. Considering that Mrs. Espinosa's dog and Brianna weren't bitten and one of the other residents wasn't bitten but she turned anyway, that means the blood or saliva of someone infected had to have gone in them. So there's really no risk of anyone in this apartment, in this room here, to have the virus, unless the virus was engineered to be airborne. Like, it's weird. Like, at what point were these people infected? Because they weren't bitten. So, you know, in what way, at what point, and why is it like the incubation period so long for from one person to the next? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like it just picks and chooses when, like, oh, this person needs to turn right now because action time. Like, you know what I mean? It never really stays continuous for the entire movie. Like, people turn at random times. When Angela throws a fit saying they're on their own, the CDC doctor in the hall agrees with her, which begs the question on what they're going to do after getting the brain samples. Like, if they were never going to rescue those inside, it seems like it would have been less of a hassle to end them all before they became rage monsters. But then, like, because Danny was like, yo, they're going to get us blood samples, and then after that, we'll all be heading out. And it really did seem like that. It really did seem like, you know, the doctors were coming in, just making sure that no one was infected, and then they would get them out. And then, of course, all hell broke loose inside the fabric shop. And then now they're like, the doctor was agreeing with Angela, like, yeah, you guys were never going to get out of here. It was just, nope, you're dead. You guys are going to die because you guys were in here. That's why. As soon as we hear the doctor's bitten, Sadie is revealed to have also become infected. She did previously mention earlier, though, that she wasn't bitten. So, I mean, I guess at some point she got saliva or blood on her in some way. Like, it just out of the blue. And she's just like nibbling on her, she nibbles on her fingers down to the bone, dude. Oh my god, that's gross. Also, what? You're nibbling on she's eating her fingers, right? And why? What does that mean, dude? Like, does that mean that the other infected can just eat themselves? Like, oh, this is tasty. No. Or was she just like, I don't know what that means. Because one symptom that Lawrence didn't mention is having serious Cheeto dust fingers, because she's going ham on her finger, dude. That's gross. But at the suggestion of killing her, Bernard gets wild and rips apart the plastic sheets, only to get sniped.
They're not gonna let us out of here alive, are they?
Here, Yuri reveals a third possible exit located in the basement, as if this information wasn't necessary hours ago. Their plan now is to go through the sewer by going into the basement, but to get there, they need the keys. Yuri, making a classic rookie mistake, has his back to the glass doors, separating them from the infected doctor. Now with just Jake, Angela, and Scott, they race to Yuri's apartment to find the keys. As soon as they leave, zombie Yuri takes Jake, and with that good old shaky cam, is either biting Jake or giving him a fierce cuddle. Unable to go down though, Angela and Scott make their way to the top unit that's filled with weird newspaper clippings talking about Armageddon and mysterious virus thing that wiped out like an indigenous island, and this is where everything is starting to make sense. Here there was a resident living at this top unit that hasn't been seen in months, and from the looks of it has actually been busy making Plan Z. It was this guy who was in a cult that created a super virus to start the end of the world. So while the rabies is fatal to people, it looks like the virus was created not to kill the host, which would make sense if you wanted the virus to keep spreading.
Thank you.
Left in the dark, they bump into the last resident, who may actually be Patient Zero. I mean, I don't know about you, but Patient Zero looks like he absolutely can see in the dark. Unfortunately, though, it does find Scott and starts snacking on him. Leaving Angela to find her way through the dark, only to suffer the same fate. And well, there you have it, folks. That is Quarantine 2008. You know, I really like this movie. As many like plot holes and like questions left unanswered as it is, like it's a really good film. The pacing is really well done, and I totally get that it like just was shot scene for scene as it's the original as Wreck, but this one like gave it commercial success. So I mean, it's not like the best movie ever made. Like it definitely could be a little better, but yeah, the movie is great, and there's always like it always gives like a weird feeling. Like it's always like a really like watching this now, like after so many times, it always gives like a very desolate, very bleak feeling, just because you know that no one makes that out alive. It's you know, it's doomed from the start. Like everyone, like there's no happy ending here, and it's really hard to pull off that kind of ending for any horror movie. But like if you do it right, if you tell the right story, if you can, you know, leave like a bit of mystery going around, I think that kind of weighs against like the bleakness of it all. But I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Like it's a really great movie, and you know, I dig it. But go ahead and subscribe. It'd mean a lot to me. Go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and you know, drop a comment here or there. Follow me on my horror page, The Horror Academy, on Instagram. And I'm looking forward to doing more of these videos. I love doing movie reviews, so we'll be doing one. I'll be doing one here soon. But with that being said, you guys, you have a safe day and stay alive.